Ladies and gentlemen, please silence your phones and hush your babies. The show is about to start.
Hello everyone, it is halftime, it is 0-0, but this is not a football show. So while we have your attention, because England are doing well, let's not talk about it. While we have your attention away from the football match that we don't really want to talk about, let's talk about Texas instead. Let's talk about a different kind of football, I guess. Places where they'll spend millions on high school football stadiums. I know because I've seen them. Things are big in Texas, but one thing that doesn't need to be big in Texas is the temple that the church wants to put in Fairview. And there's been some updates on that. So I've brought along the people that really know what they're talking about, Landon and Rebecca from Mormonish. Welcome, guys.
Oh, thanks so much for having us on to talk temples again. We love it.
Oh, pleasure.
Yeah, I was wondering, is that a soccer jersey that you have on there? Fairview United. That sounds like a soccer club.
It does sound like a soccer club, like a football club. It was a team. I think I get to play for it. Of course, the Scots are in the chat. We've got Mary from Scotland, because the Scots are only interested in watching tonight's game insofar as they're interested in watching England lose. And that's fair. That is more than fair. So let's talk temples. You've all seen the thumbnail by now. It's excellent, if I do say so myself. The temple now with major reductions because we are seeing significant concessions being made by the church. I think that's fair to say, right, guys? Or maybe not.
Oh dear! Don't make us laugh.
We'll get into that, but first we want to talk about the website. The website that has been put up to combat the influence of the adversary, which is Uslot. This has been sent out to multiple stakes. Here's an example of it being sent to the Louisville, Texas stake. Dear sisters and brothers, keep the church staying woke. In an effort to keep church members and the community well informed about the McKinney, Texas temple, a dedicated website has been launched. McKinneyTexasTemple.org. This website serves as a source of information regarding the temple, providing accurate details about its progress. The website will be continually updated with new information as it becomes available, ensuring that all have access to the latest developments and announcements. Please share this site with friends and neighbors who may have any questions or concerns about the temple and the building process. It can also serve as a means to correct misinformation in public social media discussions. Thank you for your continued faith and support. Warm regards, Jonathan G. Cannon, Area 70. Now, John Cannon's been in my sights for a while because he's the guy that was telling everyone that the height of the steeple is part of our religious observance, and I've accused him of going rogue and contradicting the prophet and, asking the brethren to put him back in his place. What do you guys think about the church pushing this website?
Well, I will say that I've seen this email going out to, I think I probably have about 7 stakes where they've sent me, people in the stakes have sent me a copy of this email. Very similar wording, if not exactly the same, but all introducing this new website. And I think the important thing is that it's to clear up misinformation. And I proudly think that the misinformation they're talking about is actually factual information that Nemo and Landon and I and others that follow this put out. So that's kind of my take on it, but it definitely very widespread as far as trying to get the word out about this website.
It's nice to be seen, isn't it?
Isn't it? I feel good. Validated.
Yeah, Landon, your thoughts?
Well, what surprised me is that they, put out that this is not an official website, and yet here it is being done by the Area 70 and all the stake presidents, and they're going to clear the misinformation. So if this is not official from the church, who is this information coming from, and how can we know we can trust it if we don't even know the source?
And this is John Cannon's problem time and time again, is that he's making statements about our religious observance that aren't reflective of the church's officially held positions on the size and architecture of temples, as stated by prophets and apostles. So he's spreading information that contradicts the church there. He's now spreading a website that holds the caveat that it's not an official website of the church, and that anyone who actually wants to know anything, like the media, important people who could maybe spread information around, they should go to the newsroom and speak to the church there. So what good is this? Who is this website for, Rebecca?
I definitely feel it's for the members to give them talking points when talking to residents or other people. But it's interesting. There are some Facebook pages and things support the McKinney Temple, faithful sites. And in looking through those, I've seen that even the old members are suspicious of this site. I've seen people say, well, who is this really from? It doesn't say it's official. And then the church PR person has jumped on in the comments and said, oh, no, this is good. This is safe. This is fine. Go ahead and read everything on here. But as we go through it, as we know we will, it's definitely full of talking points, I think, for faithful members to kind of put their possible fears to rest. If they do feel any little inkling of, is it all as I'm being told? Or do the residents there or the people in the town council, do they have a point? This website will answer those questions so that they can sleep at night.
Yeah, essentially. And, just so you all know, this is not going to be a really detailed dive into this website. Landon and Rebecca have already put together an excellent deep dive into this and the FAQs and all that sort of stuff. So this is to get you all up to date, but I would encourage you to then go and watch their episode. I'll be sharing it when it does come out. Is that due out next week?
It'll be Tuesday at 6 p.m.
Tuesday.
Mountain time. So
There
I'm
you
not
go.
sure what that is for you. It might have to be the next day. But yeah, we're going to dive into some of the sections that are a little more to us problematic. So
and definitely be along for that, Landon.
When they put this out and they say that they're, it's not an official site, what they're really doing is plausible deniability. They want to be able to say, well, anything we put out here wasn't really official. So if we got it wrong, don't blame us because we told you it wasn't official. And yet they're telling you this is where you go for all the misinformation, but we're not taking any responsibility if it's wrong.
which is highly irresponsible. I think responsibility does play into it massively. The church sending people to a website that they won't stand behind. Official church leaders, local or area church leaders who are speaking in their official capacity as church leaders, shouldn't be sending people to a website that's not reflecting the church's official position on a very controversial issue, an issue that people are trying to get clarity on. There's no point sending them to something that you can then go, oh, well, that was nothing to do with us, actually.
And it brings us back to who speaks for the church. This is the problem every one of these cities has, is who can provide an answer, who can answer that we can trust that answer is going to remain unchanged and is actually the voice of the church, because you won't let us talk to anyone in the Q15. You're sending these area authorities, but they don't have authority. You're sending stake presidents, but they don't have authority. Who does have authority to speak for the church?
No one is a decision maker, and everyone says over and over, that's above my pay grade. And all of these residents in all the towns that we talk to are very frustrated. They're like, well, then where is the decision maker? Please don't insult us by sending us someone who doesn't have the power to listen to us and enact change. Whose pay grade is it?
We'll see later that the church is getting all sort of arsey, all upset, saying that, oh, well, they wouldn't let us speak to so-and-so. They wouldn't let us speak to so-and-so. Well, I mean, how do you like it? Because the towns aren't getting to speak to the people that matter. The towns aren't getting to speak to the people that can deal with their concerns. They're speaking to a bunch of overpaid chocolate teapots who have been flown in just to sit there and say, well, actually, we can't do anything. We're just here to pass your message along. Give them an email address. Let them send an email. Don't put carbon into the atmosphere to send people that can't even speak to anything. I mean, I know it's a bit hypocritical of me. I flew 4,500 miles one way and then back to go there and speak, but I feel like at least what I said had some impact.
That's right. You're not a chocolate teapot. I love that term so much.
I don't think I'm a chocolate teapot.
You're not.
But maybe you do. And if you do, put it in the comments. And if the insult is worthy enough, I might put it on screen. Anyway, next slide. So they put a quote from Russell M. Nelson on the website. Do you want to read that, Landon?
Sure. What is a temple? The temple is the house of the Lord. The basis for every temple ordinance and covenant is the atonement of Jesus Christ. Every activity, every lesson, all we do in the church point to the Lord and his holy house.
Yeah. And I think the reason they put that on there is, everything, all we do in the church points to the Lord and his holy house. Again, this idea of the steeple points your eyes to heaven. It points you up towards God. It's, all this sort of thing is they're trying to say, well, everything about the temple is important. It's all important, even the steeple, etc. And they conveniently left out this quote. Rebecca, say it loud and proud. We've said it many times. Say it again.
No, I can hear his voice in my head saying this because I've watched this clip so often where President Nelson says, it's not the location, It's not the architecture, it's the ordinances inside.
Yeah. So that kind of undermines this idea that the steeple matters at all.
And this is pretty direct compared to the previous
It's
one, in
pretty
which they're
direct.
just alluding to the fact that maybe the architecture is
Yeah.
is important. This one, he's saying it straight out. The architecture is not important.
It's not important. And, we've got Bednar saying who cares what size it is. And we've got Corsair saying that zoning is good and all this sort of stuff, right? It's all there. We've covered it before. The website also included a project timeline, this is important. This is, I think, one of the key things for members to look at and understand the issue as it's gone on. Right. And I feel like almost like we should do one of these that's like the true version of events. You know what I mean? Just like an actual timeline of what happened. And, so for example, October 2nd, 2022, a temple is announced by the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints to be built in Prosper, Texas. Then between that, or just after December the 4th, where they announce it in Fairview, we should have stake president of Prosper sends email to local members reassuring them that it's all in the Lord's hands and they shouldn't be upset that they were expecting a temple in their town. Right? That needs to go in there somewhere. We've got Whitney Condi in the comments saying, please do a real timeline. We'll get together and work on that. I think
that would be important. That is a really good idea to show what was really happening behind the scenes, because we know
it's contained within all our videos, but I think putting it out like that, that'd be useful to everyone. So let's do that. Then December the 4th is the temple sites announced in Fairview, along with the resulting name change to the McKinney, Texas temple. Fine. March 21st, 2024, first community open house. That is the infamous open house where they sat a bunch of people down, all the residents, and went, you don't let us do this, we'll sue you. And I was like, well, okay, nice to meet you too. Can you shake my hand first or what? And then we'll get to what's missing. But then they had another community open house in May. The 9th of May was a planning and zoning meeting, and the temple did not pass. It was 6-1, didn't pass. So then it went to the town council. They granted a continuance. Again, that does not reflect the entirety of what happened there on June the 4th. I know I was there.
Yeah.
And then August the 6th coming up is where the application for conditional use permit will be presented, because the church will present their application this time. Landon and Rebecca, anything on that timeline before we obviously fill in the thing that's very obviously missing? And I'm going to eat a jammy dodger while you talk.
Please do. I was going to say that, from a faithful perspective, you read this, it just seems all above board and everything's great. I mean, maybe the only little area where you might question is at the beginning when it was the Prosper Temple, and now it seems to have changed, but don't bother with that. There's no other information on there, so we don't need to worry about that. And then it just seems like everything's in good order.
It's exactly how the church always presents everything. Everything, all is well in Zion. There's nothing that could have happened that needs to be reported that's not happiness and joy in Zion.
Yeah, I think so. So let's talk about what was missing, though, shall we? Which is very important. They forgot the 11th of April planning and zoning meeting. Now, they may argue, there's no need to put it on there because nothing happened. Well, something did happen. They were seeking to conduct a public hearing to consider, discuss, and make a recommendation on a request for approval of a conditional use permit for a religious facility. And we've all heard these words 1,000 times. The 8.1 acre site is located on the north side of Stacey Road, west of Meandering Way, and is zoned for the RE1 1 acre Ranch Estate District. Applicant is Tom Coppin, Kimley Horn, and Associates, representing owners, the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. Chair Bossatino called for the item, and the commission received a request, and there is video of the church leader, of the representative getting up and asking for this, but the commission received a request for a continuance of the item and public hearing to May 9th, 2024, meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. What I love about this and the way the church gets up and just asks for a continuance on the day, like they did in June, is that when they do that, the town tells people, well, you've come prepared to say things on this issue, so please come up and say them anyway. I really like that. I really appreciate that. And so Mara Ballard just comes up and smashes it like she does every time. And she just gets up and just reads out a statement saying, the town council is here to protect us from people that want to come in here and, change our rules and all this sort of stuff. So, yeah, I really appreciate Marlo Ballard and what she has to say, and the fact that the town lets people get up and speak. So why do you think the church didn't include this, Landon and Rebecca?
What do you think, Landon?
I'm not sure why they wouldn't, other than, I think they thought that they weren't going to get it through. So they asked for a continuance, which
Yeah.
is the same reason they asked for a continuance in the city council meeting, because they knew it wouldn't pass.
Yeah. No, I think it shows that there might be something else going on behind the scenes. It isn't all roses and hearts and rainbows there. And I think we feel that, the residents were able to mobilize pretty quickly with information and getting everybody together to kind of make a difference. Like you said, statements made at the meeting. And I think the church knew that, and they recognized that they needed to quickly regroup and come back with a different tactic. So, but nobody wants to see that on a timeline. You just want to look at it as if everything the church is trying to pass through happens, and it's all very smooth. So I think that's why they didn't.
Because 11th of April is smack bang between March 21st and May the 2nd. And you can see then that second community open house all of a sudden is very obviously an attempt to get this passed on May the 9th, because on March 21st, it didn't work out well. And I think one of the things we haven't done, and I feel is remiss of us, and we should do something about this. I'm not aware that any of us have actually got any of the local residents on to speak.
No.
I'm wondering whether we should invite someone like Marlo on to talk about this, because I feel like we're here talking about what's going on in Fairview, but we actually haven't got any of the locals on.
We've
so
had,
if any of them are up for it.
We've dealt with 5 temples. We started with Cody and Heber pretty in depth before Lone Mountain and McKinney got on our radar. And the residents have different opinions. In some towns, they're like, no, we cannot, because then we'll look like we are the opposition when we're trying to be fair-minded and work as a resident. Totally respect and understand that. And they're happy for us to share the information. Other town residents are like, please put me on. And we've done that before. Not in McKinney or Lone Mountain. So I think it has to be up to them. But I think any of us would welcome that point of view, because you're right. We are speaking for them. And in some case, that is how they prefer it. In other cases, they might really like to have their voices heard. And I think we'd all welcome that. I think that'd be very
Rebecca's
powerful.
way of saying, terrible idea, Nemo.
No,
tried it,
not a
doesn't
terrible
work.
idea. Just let all the residents take the lead on that. I think,
of course,
because
I
they
wouldn't
know
make
the
them.
dynamic there.
Yeah,
and we in Heber, we had a wonderful resident come on and talk. And then when she tried to go speak at a city council meeting, they said, well, you can't speak here. You talk to Mormonish,
Yes, I remember. Yes.
So sometimes, and she, of course, stood up and she said, well, no other news outlet here in Utah would let us talk about our residents' point of view, but Mormonish did, so we're like, claim to fame. We shut down a city council meeting, but no. So there's a pros and cons to residents who want to speak with us, and we will do whatever anybody wants to do.
Quite right. Okay, well, let's move on to the fact sheet going missing, which was quite funny that all of a sudden this pops up when you try and go to the church's fact sheet directly from the link. I was like, oh no, if they got rid of it, what if they got rid of it? What happens? What's changed? And instantly, I'm gonna be open about this. Instantly, my mind goes to the worst. I think, right, are they just not going to bring it back? Have they just completely canned this? Have they realized that it's not being very open and honest? No, it's not the case. Here's the old one, which is very blurry, but they brought it back, and it is exactly the same, apart from the opening paragraph mentions Fairview now, which it's only taken them this long to actually start using the name Fairview in documents, as far as talking about the location of the temple as being sort of a Fairview temple, right? I haven't explained that very well, but I'll read the different paragraphs if you like. On the first document, it said the McKinney Temple will serve 16,000 church members in the Sherman, Prosper, McKinney, Frisco, and Allen areas. So that there makes it all about Sherman, Prosper, McKinney, Frisco, and Allen, and not about Fairview. And the question is, well, will it not serve members in that area? Will it not serve members in Fairview? There's not that many members in Fairview, so maybe not. But now they've changed it to the McKinney Temple will serve 16,000 church members in the areas surrounding Fairview, including McKinney, Allen, Frisco, Prosper, and Sherman. Now, I didn't think there was too much to read into that, but you guys had some thoughts on that when we were talking about it earlier. I'll put you on the
Well,
spot.
I think they took they took some heat during the planning and zoning meeting and some of the others with people saying, you know, you're coming in here, you're ignoring all of our laws, you're trying to force this down our throat, you're trying to sue us, and you can't even call it the Fairview Temple, you're calling it McKinney Temple, when it's in our town. And I know there's not a lot of love necessarily between McKinney and Fairview over some airport issues, is our understanding.
Yep.
And so they took quite a bit of exception to the fact that, why are you calling it McKinney when it's being built? You're proposing it here in Fairview. So I think they heard that and they brought it back, and they're trying to alleviate that. But it was clear that was just a minor annoyance to people. This was not the reason that the temple is being rejected.
Which will become
it doesn't
significant.
meet the zoning.
Yeah, it was kind of like insult to injury. You're doing all this,
Yeah.
and then on top of all that, you're going to call it this. But I also feel, in talking to the residents, of course, how could they understand what a temple district is, right? And so people would express to us, why are people interested in this 2 hours away? Why are they coming here? So if you read that statement, it says areas surrounding. I think maybe they're trying to make it a little more clear to them that it's not just these towns, it's a much larger picture, because the residents were very confused by that. Some that we talked to, like, why did they care? Why are they involved? Why are they inserting themselves? And we would try to explain, well, a temple district, you're assigned technically to kind of go there. You don't always, but it's so complicated. Nobody can understand it.
We have one final little point about the website and about that fact sheet. There are inaccurate figures on there. According to a individual from Fairview who spoke with John Cannon at one of the open houses, he said there'd be 20,000 people there. The church is now saying 16. They've reduced the number there somewhat, but they were struggling even on the night to get accurate figures between Art Ruscone and Elder Cannon and the church architect and whatnot. So, again, the church is kind of just playing fast and loose with some of these figures. According to the locals, they are still confused as to the exact numbers of what's going on. So that's just a small point.
We were told the website would correct misinformation. So evidently Elder Cannon was putting out misinformation at 20,000, and 16,000 is the number we should believe.
Agreed, Landon. Very good. Yeah.
Well, and I always tell the residents, no matter what number they put out as far as membership or anything like that, or who will attend, pretty much take a fourth. And that's going to be accurate. That's what we've learned, I think, across the entire LDS landscape. Don't you think, Landon?
Yeah, they're counting everyone.
Yeah,
they're counting everyone who has ever been baptized into their church, whether they know where they are, whether they know if they're living or dead. Anyone in that area who's still on their records, which they maintain until a person's 110 years old, if they don't know where that person is. So the figures come out really about 25% of those numbers that actually hold temple recommends.
Maybe even less, because it's not, I mean, it's not too deep. We're not going to get too far into it, but I know that there has been calls for people to go and work at the Dallas temple because not enough people are going and working there. They need workers. So it's like, okay, you're struggling to man the current temple that you have within the sort of larger Dallas area, and now you're building another one because you need it. And some of the people in the comments on these Facebook groups that I've been shown kind of screenshots of are saying, let's show the brethren that we need this McKinney Temple quickly, that this absolutely needs to happen. They're kind of just trying to convince themselves. There's a lot of love for your shirts, by the way, just in the comments.
We're trying to embrace summer here. It's finally
Mary's saying you look like you're wearing a kimono. You're wearing a kimono
in a bathrobe. He does. No, but I mean, anecdotally, this is interesting when you talk about numbers like that. In Rexburg, Idaho, there is a temple, a big temple. I think it's actually only 43,000. They're building a new temple just down the street, the Teton River Temple. It's going to be 100,000 square feet. And we had somebody reach out to us and say they were connected to the survey team there. And of course, the reason for the temple is exactly like McKinney and Dallas. Overflow, they're just bursting at the seams. Well, the survey team kind of let slip, we're being asked to possibly reduce it, perhaps survey the land for not 100,000 square feet. Why? Because of reduced attendance and, all of that. So the numbers are inflated, and I think everybody knows it to a certain level. But then you keep hearing, well, it's not so much the numbers, it's the distance. We don't want people to have to drive very far. I think I heard that the first time at the council meeting where a gentleman got up and said he was worried about kids driving on the busy Dallas streets. Do you remember that? And I've heard this now over and over. The location will be closer, but closer to who? That's relative. Or to whom? It's farther away from someone else. So I think they're just pulling out every possible reason they could come up with to justify it. It's not attendance.
I mean,
it's not proximity. What is it?
I have no sympathy for anyone saying, "Oh, the temple's too far away."
Yeah.
When I grew up driving 2.5 hours to go to the temple, right?
Yes.
And in my country of nominally 180,000 members, we're going to get a third temple. We had 2 temples for a long time, right? People would drive for 6-7 hours sometimes to get to a temple.
It was like a badge of honor. How far do you have to go? You have to sleep overnight.
The entire country of France is served by one temple, right? And we talked about this in the show that I did with you guys that people should check out. But the entire country of France is served by a 44,000 square foot temple. So people are driving for hours and hours. I have no sympathy at all for anyone in Fairview that gets up and goes, "Oh, I don't want my kids having to drive to Dallas. That highway's unsafe." It's like, well, okay, there's a broader cultural issue with your children driving way too young, frankly. From a British perspective, I'm going to bag on the Americans for a second. Drive your kids. If you don't feel like it's safe, you feel like they're too young, they're immature drivers, just drive them yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Particularly with America being a driving culture, I barely walked anywhere the entire time I was there in Texas, right? Fairview is one of those towns where, the neighborhood itself is kind of walkable, and that's what they want to keep. That's the vibe they want to keep. But ultimately, the moment you get to what is just like Stacey Road, for a Brit, that's a motorway. It's massive. Like, it's a highway. It's huge. Whereas it's car central in America. So the idea that your kids have to drive, they have to drive everywhere. I guess that's what I'm getting at, right? Everyone drives everywhere. So what's the drama with your kids having to drive to Dallas? Yeah.
Just a reason.
Anyway, here's the exciting developments. The church put a press release out on July the 11th because they had a meeting. And this was put out. If people want to know more, they should go to Melissa McNeely, because her name's still kicking around, even though she's the one that was sending people a letter that was saying that don't worry, it complies with code, and don't worry, it's only 2 stories tall, and right. So apparently she hasn't lost her job over that. She's still around. This is the thing that gets me about the church. I could soapbox about this for hours, but I won't. Is that just no one seems to ever get in any trouble or ever lose a position for just saying things that aren't true, like John Cannon, like Melissa McNeely. These are things that are fundamentally undermining the positive discourse of the church with the locals, and these people haven't been removed from position or reassigned elsewhere. They're just still there. Right?
Everyone's an unpaid volunteer, so it's hard to remove an unpaid volunteer
with an official comms church email address.
Who was it that said the truth isn't always useful? In this case, untruths can be very useful. So, since that's the church's mantra, I think that's why this can be very helpful when you try to spin it that way.
Yeah. Well, let's read this, shall we? Can you guys read that?
Ooh, I don't think I can. Landon, can you?
If I lean forward, I can.
Go on, Landon.
We'll be able to see your shirt better, so go ahead.
That's right. Get a better view.
Get a better view.
If I don't blind anyone. Okay, it says, as we continue to work through the approval process for the McKinney Temple, we appreciate the goodwill of those helping to make this sacred place of worship possible. This morning, representatives from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints met with Fairview Town Mayor Henry Lesner, Mayor Pro Tem John Hubbard, Town Manager Julie Couch, and Town Attorney Clark McCoy to discuss the proposed McKinney Temple. During this meeting, the church presented a good faith offer that included reducing the height of the temple by approximately 15 feet and changing the name of the temple. Despite these significant concessions, those in attendance said they would not support or recommend this offer to the town council. Furthermore, the town attorney refused to allow church representatives to meet with the other town council members to address their concerns directly. We remain hopeful that we can reach a mutual agreement and continue to work towards a solution that benefits both the town of Fairview and the local membership of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For more information about the McKinney Temple project, please visit the website that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Because, it's a media statement they're putting out to give a link to an official church website. It's designed to correct misinformation, sometimes put out by their own leadership, as you pointed out, Landon. So, okay.
And this should be corrected. There's so
Yes.
much misinformation in this statement that this needs to be corrected on their website.
Let's work through it, shall we? I mean, where do we start?
Where do we start?
I mean, this morning, representatives from the church met with Fairview Town Mayor Henry Lester, Mayor Pro Tem John Hubbard, Town Manager Judy Couch, Town Attorney Clark McCoy to discuss the proposed temple. Fine. I've heard that the town council had to push that meeting slightly. This is what they had to kind of make that happen. The church was just going to come back on the 6th of August and just like, here's what we've got. And people were saying, well, no, the whole point was that you had 2 months to work with us to try and get within code. And that involves an open dialogue. So this meeting then happened. Have you guys heard something similar, or am I pulling that out?
Yeah, no, I've heard that too. And we just compare this to the episode that we three all did together with the Baptist or was it Methodist? The Methodist church that was trying to build the bell tower. And that's a whole other issue. But the point is that church came in, they met over and over. They attended meetings. They had meetings behind the scenes. They really, really tried to understand the town council, and the town council understood where they stood. This is completely the opposite of that. This is not transparency in any sense of the word.
Absolutely. Also, Catherine Class just put a point out just before we move on. How often are kids driving themselves to the temple anyway? Baptisms are done via carpool with leaders and parents. Children don't often drive themselves to the temple of their own accord. Very good point. Anyway, yes, no, I think the next paragraph is frankly insulting.
Yes.
During this meeting, the church presented a good faith offer. So that phrase in itself gives the vibe, as it were, that, we, off our own back, because we're trying to be nice, have given this offer. Not because you are threatening to refuse it, not because we have an obligation to try and get within the codes of your town. It's, we've decided because we're feeling nice, we're going to put forward a good faith offer. What are your thoughts to that point there? Does that sound about right?
I was furious when I read this because the town council, the town council at the last meeting made it perfectly obvious as to what the church had to do in order to get this temple through. They gave them the height. They said 42 feet for the roof and 68 foot for the spire. That is what we're allowing. And we're giving you 2 months. You asked for it. We didn't have to give it to you. That was good faith. We trust that you're going to go and try to make some changes. You told us you would. You asked us for this extension. It was you that asked for the extension. We were ready to go the night it was scheduled. You asked for an extension under the understanding that you understood what it was going to take to get our vote to get this through. And we gave you 2 months to go do this. And you come back after 1 month with a 15-foot reduction and a name change. Name change was not one of the conditions they gave. And 15 foot is not even, from 173 down to 68, and they gave 15 foot. And we all know they're going to come back. If they were to build it at that, they'd come back and put an Angel Moroni on it in 5 years and get it right back to the height that they were trying to take it down to.
Moroni can often be 15 feet tall. He's usually about 8 or 9, right?
Very close. This is not a good faith offer. This is an insult. And it's basically them saying, it's basically them giving you 2 middle fingers and saying, we aren't changing anything, town council.
Someone needs to do that with AI.
I sat there and watched John Hubbard turn to the members and go, I want to believe that you guys want to be good neighbors and that you're going to go away and you're going to make some changes and you're going to come back. He said, otherwise, I'm with you. And he pointed over to, is it Greg Custer?
All the Fairview crowd.
Right. Over another one of the council members. Over to the right, the guy who was sworn in that night. I apologize. I've just forgot the name.
Right.
And, he'd said, my feeling is if the church doesn't come back in code, we'll deny it. Mayor Lesnar made the same point. We'll give them 2 months. They come back. It's not within code. We'll deny it then. We'll deal with it then. He's trying his best to show that the town is working with the church. What the church is doing here is they're trying to give exactly the same impression. They're trying to be able to say, oh, we have, tried to compromise and they won't let us have it. And I think it's really important that we focus on the 15 feet and changing the name of the temple, which is that's what they came back with. And they're having the gall to call that significant concessions.
And again, they're the applicant. They are the applicant coming before the town. Since when does the applicant get to say, all right, fine, we're nice enough to give you some concessions? No, the town can say what the town wants to say. So it is a very condescending point of view. But I believe this whole statement is sort of a talking point to faithful members, because they'll read this and they'll say, oh, the church is trying to work with them. And oh, look at that. Not very nice town council. They're not working with our leaders. So I think it's a talking point for the faithful members.
This is for the faithful members. And this idea then that the town attorney refused to allow church representatives to meet with the other town council members. I've had people try and explain that to me. I'm not massively au fait with, town council law, but essentially it wouldn't be legal for the town council to all meet with the representatives of an applicant outside of an official meeting. You can't have too many of them in one place. Otherwise, I think someone called it a walking quorum or something like that.
They have very stringent rules about that. There are sunshine laws, meaning you have to shine light on everything that you do. So as they say here, what they're trying to say is they've been advised by their attorney that they need to follow these sunshine laws. And so, no, they're not refusing to meet with the church.
We've got someone in saying, 2 of 5 or it is illegal. And this is... And this is the thing as well, is that the church isn't used to transparency laws and having to, actually
having to follow
those sorts of things.
Well, and I will say this, that I heard also that this letter alludes to the church will not be allowed to meet with the council anymore. That is not true. What the council said is, we cannot meet with your attorneys. We will meet with your church representatives. There's a difference there, or is there? Because the church representatives are all attorneys. But all the council is saying, not your attorney anymore, but the church can talk to us, and that's all.
And ultimately, there's no difference. There's no difference in the extent to which any of them can actually make any changes to the church's plans, because none of them have any control over what the church is putting forward. It all has to go through Salt Lake anyway. So meetings with them is ultimately kind of pointless. They should really send someone from the temple department or the apostle in charge than anyone else. And we'll just talk about this final line here before we get back to the 15 feet, because we really need to hammer that home. It says, we remain hopeful that we can reach a mutual agreement and continue to work towards a solution that benefits both the town of Fairview and local membership of the church. We remain hopeful. That is different to we remain committed to, or we will strive to ensure that, or any of those things. They can remain hopeful all they like. And what that allows them to do is then sue the town, knowing, we were hopeful, but ultimately we didn't think it would happen. They have not actually shown any. That sounds like they're committed to a resolution that benefits both parties. But if you read what they've said, it isn't. It's just they're stating their hope. And, shucks, it didn't happen, but we've got to get what we need out of this. So, bye-bye.
Right. And behind the scenes, they're just calling for fast after fast to soften the hardened hearts of the residents and the town council. So that needs to happen.
And I want to go back. If I were a member of this town council who are not paid, they have to take their own time to go and listen and meet with the church officials. And I just heard that this is what they came back with after what we told them we expected.
Yep.
Why would I waste my time meeting with them to be told the same thing that they just told everyone else? Are they going to come tell me, oh, no, we're committed to getting within those guidelines that you gave us? No. So why meet? It's a waste of time.
Yeah, absolutely. The town has been very clear about what they expect. The church, as far as I'm aware, are grown adults who don't need their hand held to understand simple numbers. And so they can go away and look at the numbers that they have to meet and try and meet them. They don't need to come back and go, the best we could do is 15. So this is not particularly a negotiation. There are limits that are in place. The town has made it very clear that they're not willing to change those limits on this occasion, because the last time they changed those limits was for this same church. The last time that they increased those limits was for this church in a religious context. So they've said, no, we're not willing to give you any more. So this is what you've got to work with. And the church has come back, but what if we reduce by 15 feet? It's strangely almost childish. But
It
but
is.
please, I'll go to bed in a minite. It's like, well, this is not a negotiation. This is your bedtime, right? It's not a negotiation. These are the
Sounds like a
heights.
toddler. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, it's really
Well,
strange.
it's a good point about the concession that the town made, and it was for a stake center. The LDS Church already has the tallest religious building in town with the
Yeah.
stake center, which is
Is
right
it a stake
here.
center or is it just a ward building? I
I
feel like
thought maybe it's
I've
maybe
heard
it's a
stake
ward
center, but I
building.
feel like someone corrected me on that.
That
So
it's a meeting
it's
house.
a meeting
It could just
house,
be a meeting
regardless.
house. And
Yeah.
somebody made the point that the mass of the walls of the proposed temple are only, I think, 4 feet shorter than the tallest, the tip of the meeting house. So we're talking about, just these incredible heights, and to just shave off
3
15
feet.
feet from the top, it's
Yeah.
nothing. It's absolutely nothing.
The top of the top of
Is it 3 feet?
Yeah, the top of the temple will be 65 feet, and the top of the tower is 68. The
Yeah.
top of the spire.
So exactly.
So that's why I've
even
done that graphic
the
where if you
roof
put it
line,
behind it, yeah,
the roof line is very similar to the
massive.
tallest tip of that stake
Yeah.
center. And
Yeah.
so the 15 feet off the top at the narrowest part, that has absolutely no impact whatsoever.
Yeah. Maybe the height never matters at all then, is my point to this. If the church is willing to come back and take 15 feet off, regardless of if that's just a stupid offer, it proves that that is negotiable. The height of the steeple is negotiable. So why would you negotiate with what is part of your religious observance? Surely, if it's part of your religious observance, why are you using it? Why are you negotiating it at all? And people will be in the comments saying, oh, you can't please Nemo. He either wants them to bring the height down or he doesn't want them to in order to be... Well, the point is, I'm pointing at the inconsistency of their argument.
Right.
The inconsistency of the argument to say that the height of the steeple is part of our religious observance. Well, if that is truly the case, which your prophets disagree and everyone else disagrees, John Cannon, so I don't know why you're spouting that. And I'm going to keep blaming it on you because you're the one that sent that out to people. Then... if you're going to say that, that absolutely has to be non-negotiable. And you have to go, well, okay, fine, we're going to do a completely different design because for some reason unknown to anyone outside the church, a completely different design is acceptable in Yorba Linda, it's acceptable in Paris, it's acceptable in Mesa, it's acceptable in Cardston and Lay, it's acceptable in all these places when it looks exactly like that. So we'll just put what looks exactly like that there because that does work. But bringing the height of the steeple down on this design clearly doesn't, because the height of the steeple is part of our religious observance. Whatever, fine. But I think this undermines that point the church was making, right?
Has anyone ever done the math on exactly the footage necessary to draw your eye to heaven? I mean, they keep saying that. There's got to be some kind of mathematical formula, what it takes to draw your eye to heaven. Because I mean, I was at McDonald's yesterday for breakfast to get an Egg McMuffin, which I love. And I looked at the arches and I did feel my eyes being drawn to heaven. I don't know how tall those are, but I'm sure there's got to be some math involved.
It's almost like their billboard height. And an advertisement.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the temple. Adriel Hillis puts a really good point here. It's like the teacher saying the paper needs to be at least 10 pages long. You turn in a 4-page paper. The teacher tells you to rewrite it. So you turn in a 7-page paper.
Yep. It's so insulting.
I'm unwilling to believe that the individuals who were at that meeting, who were sat in the row in front of me, who heard the mayor say it needs to come in within code, didn't understand that. They are smart individuals, as far as I'm aware. I do not believe that they are cognitively deficient to the extent that they did not understand that's what they needed to do. So that means that this is a purposeful ignoring of the town's position that it needs to come within code, and that's insulting to me. And I am taking this a bit personally because I've been there, I've met these people.
I know.
So I take this personally now. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I feel that the reason they can do this so easily and with such a cavalier attitude is because they feel they have RLUIPA in their back pocket.
Yeah.
Right? They're trying to play nice now, but they've alluded to it in that first meeting and several others, and that's what they're going to pull out eventually. So this is just playtime. This is not even real to any of them.
Do we feel that 15 feet, and we worked this out just before we went live, we're like, Rebecca was like, get a percentage. People like numbers. So we worked
It's
it
hard
out.
to figure out,
Yeah.
exactly what it means. Yeah.
So 15 feet is taking 15 feet off the height of the 173-foot tall spire is an 8.6% reduction in height. Is that really a significant concession, would we think? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll put it on the screen. It's the perks of being live. Thank you very much, Sylvia Krantz, by the way, and everyone else that sent donations in tonight. I've tried to read your comments regardless, but if they come in with a donation, I've tried to make sure they get on screen. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, is that significant? Because, and as we were discussing before, according to the church, 10% is considered a reasonable sacrifice, at least when it comes to your income. So, Rebecca, what was that you said about net versus gross?
Yes, I said the temple must be built on net, right? If
Yeah.
they're only doing an 8.6 reduction.
Yes, but their offer was gross. Yeah.
Their
Their
offer
offer was gross. And I do hope people understand why we're saying you shouldn't have even offered that. It should be taller. It's just the insulting nature of it. I mean, it's just, well, whop. I made a meme. I don't know if anyone's seen it, where there's a temple in a barber chair and it says, oh, we'll just take a little off the top there, and then the town's like, nope. I mean,
But how is this put? Not even a full tithe. The church can't even give a concession that is a full tithe. And we're being a bit flippant here, but I think this just puts into perspective. They view 10% as a reasonable amount to take from someone's wages every month. They view that as a reasonable, they view that as fulfilling the obligations of the commandment to tithe to the Lord. That's what they view as sufficient as that. But they don't view 10% as sufficient to compromise with the town over the height of their building. No, 8.6% is enough. Thank you very much. So what's with the disconnect there? We're being a bit flippant there. But I think the point that I wanted to make, and that has been kind of circulating in my brain, is have they taken 15 foot off for Creekwood? Because let us not forget that here, the significant concessions that they described was reducing the height of the temple by approximately 15 feet. So that could be up to 19 feet. Mm-hmm. That could be as low as 12. We don't know the exact number, but they would do it approximately 15 feet. Now, if you take exactly 19 feet off the height of the temple, that would bring it down to the 154-foot bell tower of Creekwood United Methodist Church. The bell tower that was never approved and never built, but the one that the church seems to think entitles them to whip out RLUIPA and go, well, you gave the Methodist Church a tower, so we should get it. And we've done a whole episode on that, proving why that just doesn't work and why it was never approved, etc., etc., etc. But 173, if you take enough off there, if you take 15 feet off that, that'll take you down to 158. And if you take another 4 off that, so 15 at 4, 19. So you take 19 feet off, you'll get yourself 154. That's quick maths. If I got that wrong, please someone tell me in the comments. But then all of a sudden, the church is going to feel that that's all they have to do. They have to drop it down to the height of the bell tower. And then they go, well, see, the bell tower. The other thing is that we've mentioned it's taller than the water towers. They may view that, the water tower there, 173 feet for that. They've got the water towers at 140 to 150, or the radio tower. They may think that, oh, well, now we've brought it below the radio tower on Highway 5. Now it's, not the tallest thing around anymore. That should be enough. So there's these reasons why 15 feet they may view enough. Doug Vincent has kindly supplied me with my next few packets of Jammy Dodgers. Thank you very much, Doug Vincent.
That water tower, Landon and I talk about that all the time, because somebody actually said, I didn't want a water tower. I can see that from where I live, but I got used to it. And we're like, it's a water tower. Do you remember what you said, Landon? You were so funny about it.
Well, yeah, you can't live without the water tower. It provides all the water pressure for the entire city. So everybody is benefiting from that water tower. And so everyone has to take that into consideration. But you can live with a temple that's 70 feet tall. It doesn't have to be that high to provide the pressure.
No, it does not, especially because there's
pressure.
Nothing in
There's pressure when it comes to the temple. I mean,
Yeah,
let's not kid ourselves.
Absolutely positive. So here's a diagram that some of you may be familiar with that shows the steeple precedent in town currently, and it shows the proposed but never built or approved bell tower height for the Creekwood United Methodist Church. And you can see there, looking at it, if you dropped about 15, 19 feet off the temple, you can see you take it off, and then all of a sudden, you're getting down towards the bell tower territory. And I think that could very well be the church's driver for thinking that's what they need to do. But look at the roof height there. Look at the difference. The roof height, as you can see, is almost as tall as the current steeple of the chapel next door. And that's going to overshadow people's houses. That's going to block people's sunsets. It's massive. You obviously all can't go to Texas, but you drive down East Stacy Road, and I promise you see that if you line it up with the top of the spire, just how big that'll be on the skyline. It will forever change the way that all that looks. And we've got people actually commenting on the football match in the chat. So great multitasking, folks.
What's the score?
The score, I think it's 2-1 by the looks of it.
Oh, wow.
Gail Dedrick says, how Exmo can I be when the church still disappoints me? I should expect half-truth and shadiness after all these decades. Unfortunately, we do kind of come to that conclusion often, that we should expect this. Any final thoughts on this height reduction, the 15 feet? Any more speculations, ideas? I'm going to eat another jammy dodger.
Well, you pointed it out, but I don't think it can not be overemphasized that they didn't even address the roof height. They only addressed the steeple height. The roof is still, you can see the church there, the United Creekwood United Methodist, and they're like 38 foot. The zoning code allows for 35. So they got a conditional use permit to get to 38. The highest roof line right now is 42 feet. That's out there, and so the city said you can have 42 feet, but they're at 62, something like they're 30% over the 65. The code. 65. Yeah, 65. So they're extremely they haven't even addressed that issue, and that's because they have 0 to point to for a roof precedence of that.
Yeah. They're 23 feet over code just when it comes to the roof before you even get to the spire. And I think that's really important that you've done that, Landon, because I think it's easy for all of us to get caught up in just talking about the height of the spire, the steeple all the time, and really focusing on that, when actually, we mustn't forget that is a huge roof height, and it makes the mass of the building, because it would be different if they were proposing to put that building there, the Creekwood United Methodist Church, on that plot, because yes, you'd have a whopping great big bell tower, but the roof is quite low. Yeah, so it won't have the same effect on the neighbors. Yeah.
And I think they realize there's no precedence, even a sort of, the bell tower is a wiggle room kind of a precedence, but there's no precedence for the roof height. And so we started noticing, we've talked about this before, that they keep mentioning the mass of the walls being important to the religious worship, the mass of the walls, the height of the walls, the second story. Jesus lives on the second story. We have recordings from meetings saying this. And we were asking ourselves, why are they talking now about the mass of the walls? It was always the height of the steeple. Now it's the mass of the walls. And I think that's it exactly. The only way they're going to get that is RLUIPA saying it's essential to their worship, and they've got to have it. It's their right.
Just like they have to have it in that office block they're converting in Belgium.
Yes. So anything they say, and if you go through the website, the unofficial website in more detail, they really do allude to the fact that every single thing, even about the temple, is part of their religious worship now. How the location is chosen, the landscaping, every blade of grass, every thought in President Nelson's head, every part of the process is part of their religious worship. So there's nothing that you can do to fight back against that, if that's really the mindset.
Every fiber of the temple
fiber. Yes, that's it. That's what I'm trying to say.
The styrofoam cups that get left in the wall by the construction workers, those are all part of it. Sheila said, we of the grandeur have made a concession. Its extent is irrelevant. That itself should be enough. I think that pretty much sums up the church's attitude here, is that, they have deigned to they have deigned to concede at all on a matter of height or whatever, and that should be enough. And I just don't think it is. It's not.
Well,
enough.
I think what we have is we have two different entities here. You've got the church that's trying to preserve RLUIPA and make the argument that we're exempt from every zoning code ever invented anywhere in the world.
Yep.
At least anywhere in the United States. They'd probably extend it to the world.
It's Europe.
where you have the town that's saying, no, these are our codes and this is what we follow. We don't give special privileges to other entities just because they claim they're religious. And RLUIPA specifically says it doesn't exempt them from meeting zoning codes.
Right.
So the
There's
church is trying to
protection.
spin this so that everything falls under RLUIPA, so that they've got this get out of jail free card that they can present anytime they want it. And this is what we have going on. We've got one side trying to fight for RLUIPA and one side saying we're enforcing our zoning codes.
I feel like it was maybe Joel that got up at the town council meeting and said, RLUIPA's also meant to protect us.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not.
And that's true
right now. And the church is using it to batter us with, because it's meant to stop discrimination. That's what it's actually meant to stop. But the church is trying to create an environment in which any concessions equal discrimination, which I think is what you're saying, Landon, right? Is they're trying to create this environment where anything you ask us to change, well, it's discrimination because it's all important to us. And it's all essential. Even though people can point to examples around the world where those things don't exist, or those things are much shorter, or whatever, the church go, no, in this instance, it's all just essential to us because the prophet said so. They're trying to create that environment. Whereas what that legislation, in theory, was designed for, even though the church kind of seemed to bring it forward, and so perhaps they always had this aim in mind, we can't say.
I think so.
But the church brought this forward, and what it was designed to do was to say, well, if someone comes and wants to build a mosque in this town, and it's a very Christian town and the locals don't like it, it doesn't matter, because as long as that mosque meets code or is within the exemptions granted to other religious institutions, then they have every right to build it. But what we've got here is the church has not met it is not within the exemptions granted to other religious institutions, including themselves, because they are already the beneficiaries. This is the crazy thing. They're the beneficiaries of the tallest exemptions in town when it comes to overall height. On a religious building, they are the beneficiaries of the tallest one. So they can't say they're being discriminated against. They've lost that battle. The moment you understand that Creekwood never happened, then they've lost that battle. And I think that's where the town will win ultimately. But what next? What will the church do now? Rebecca and Landon, what will they do now?
That's a good question. I think they'll return to the council meeting on the 6th of August, Tuesday, and I think they'll just go back to their original plan and plop it down again.
Yep.
And then the town will say no, like they have told them they will say no. They wanted them to present something like Yorba Linda that we showed that would fit. And then I think let the games begin. We already know the church has hired a law firm. In fact, I think, Landon, you have a really good rundown of what they've done in this last couple months that shows all of us, I think, what is going to happen next.
Landon, run us through it.
The church had 2 months. They were given 2 months. It's been about a month now. And what have they done? They've had a fast to soften the hearts of the church leaders. They've hired another law firm, real estate law firm, to fight this in court. They've showed up to a meeting where they said we change the name and give 15 feet. This is what they've done. They've done nothing that indicates they're going to make any change. And so they are not going to make any change. They're going to come in, they're going to present their plan. It's going to be rejected, and then they're going to sue. Just like they did when they didn't get their way in Cody. They're going to do the same thing here, and they're going to fight it, and they're going to try to make this very expensive for Fairview.
Yeah.
Because that's how they win. They have more money than God.
They don't have to be right.
Any small town, any small country, probably. And this is exactly what happened finally in Cody.
Because who was it that said to me, unfortunately, the legal system in America is such that sometimes you don't have to be right. You just have to have more money.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like that could be the case here, because the church, morally, ethically, however you want to frame it, they're not in the right with this. They're not being honest with their fellow men. They are not being honest about their own views, about their own religious tenets. They're not playing the game nicely, but they are playing a win at all cost strategy, which they can afford to pay more than the town.
Yeah, that's it. And eventually, like in Cody, the town finally says, okay, our duty to our citizens is a fiduciary duty. Is, we have to make sure the town is solvent. So
Yeah.
we back out of all of this. And like in Cody, then individual residents groups step up. They try to fund at great personal expense from their own money, lawsuits suing their own town for not protecting them, trying to sue the church. Somebody needs to protect the residents. And in many cases, the town councils try, the city councils try, but it just becomes too overwhelming. In some cases, not at all. Like in Heber, when everybody on the town council, city council is LDS, and they just go ahead and open the door and let everybody come through. So it's a really interesting scenario. In fact, in Heber right now, you've got a citizens group suing the town, and the church has joined with the town of Heber against
the county. It's the county.
The county. Sorry,
Yeah.
the county. City, county, town. Oh my gosh, I wish they were just interchangeable. But again, now their own citizens are having to fight their town, and the church has joined the county. So it just gets crazy. But the money talks, and in the end, they can outlast any scenario whatsoever.
Here's a question then for people to answer in the comments, and this is what we'll leave you with. I'm envisaging a scenario right now. The church sues Fairview. Fairview loses because Fairview can't pay the fees. The church comes in and builds 173-foot tall temple, 65-foot tall walls, massive thing. They build it as they want. The people of Fairview sue the town of Fairview for failing to for benefiting one religious group over others to an extreme extent, right? Which again, RLUIPA would have them winning.
Yep.
So they use the same legislation the church is threatening to use in order to win a case. At the point at which that goes in front of a judge and the judge goes, yes, the people of Fairview are right, because that is an easier case for them to win when they're not fighting the church, because I can't imagine the church propping up the town that they've just sued. I don't know how that works. I don't know how the church can do that, but maybe they can. If the people of Fairview win, so here's the question. If the people of Fairview win that subsequent fight, does the church have to tear the temple down?
That has never been seen before.
Know?
Yeah, that has not been seen before.
Does anyone know if that would be
it would
the
not?
case?
I don't think
That's
it would be
restorative
retroactive, because they would, if they're given the permit and they build it and they had a legal permit, I don't think it would be
Oh.
But
retroactive.
if that legal permit was
It couldn't.
given on the basis of sort of prejudicial legal ruling or a bad legal ruling, then that's the question.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
but
in theory
I
that
wanna
may
know.
be because
Yeah.
they haven't started building in Cody, and yet
No.
they've been given the go ahead, but they know
Yep,
they've got
same
this
thing.
lawsuit hanging over their head.
Yeah,
So
and so they'll wait for that to be resolved because they don't want to have to tear it down or
Yeah.
bury the foundations circa Brigham Young's time. Right?
But you know what? I will tell you what is torn down, and already is torn down in all of these towns and cities, and that is the relationship and the community among the people. That's what's already been torn down and continues to be torn down and is probably beyond repair in a lot of cases.
The church's reputation
Yes.
is shattered in all
Yes.
these communities.
Yep, that's what I'm saying.
And
yeah, but they don't seem to care.
But how many times do they have to do this before they do care?
Yeah.
That's it. It's sheer number, and every new town is on the backs of the shoulders of other towns that have fought, and that's exactly it. I don't know what that number is until they finally say, all right, look, let's be neighborly, like they always say. And we listen to enough of these meetings, all of us, that we hear it over and over. We just want to be good neighbors. That's what we hear. This kind of obsequious way. We just want to be, from the bottom of our heart, a good neighbor. Well, you know what you need to do then. You know
Not
what you need
sue
to do.
us.
You can't just say it like that over and
Yeah.
over, because you're not doing it.
How sincere is it when you do it town after town after town? It's hard to believe it's sincere.
Now, I think it's even in that statement. We just want to be a good neighbor. Wanting to be a good neighbor is very different from taking steps to be a good neighbor or performing the actions that a good neighbor would. It's very different.
Well, on that note, Rebecca and Landon, thank you very much for joining us this evening or this afternoon, your time. I'm going to go and cry in a corner with my fellow countrymen over the results of this game. As I've seen in the chat, it seems like we haven't done so well. But remember, Fairview United, we will keep it country as long as we can. The meeting is on the 6th of August. You can tune in right here. To catch coverage of that. I will be covering it. Rebecca and Landon, I'm sure, will also be covering it. So make sure you go subscribe to their channel, subscribe here, hit the like button on your way out, and we will see you again soon. Make sure to check out Landon and Rebecca's video on Tuesday, where they will dive deeper into the church's website and the problems with that. Have a good night, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.